The million-dollar question. Is there a devil? Does Satan exist? The Illuminati, the Satanists, the Zionists, the occultists, the Kabbalists, what are they into? And with all that technology, all that money that they've spent of the American people and the world's people's monies, what have they learned? Can they do mind control? Do they have a chip? Are they planning on putting 666 marks of the beast on us? Don't you want to know? Rick Miracle reporting. Hello, Rick Miracle here. Welcome back to my series, Masonry and Satanism. And I realize when I say Satanism, a lot of people go, well, he's crazy. There's no devil. There's no Satan. There's no Lucifer. And a lot of people these days say there's no God. A lot of people believe when you die, you die. You don't go on. There's no judgment. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's what you've been programmed to believe. That's what the TV's been doing to the people for 60 years, since its invention. So I thought I would try to go off in a different direction and show you some things you probably didn't know. Some of you do, I'm sure. So anyways, I want to talk about this book. The Human Aura. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the fact that they have an aura. By Walter Kilner. And he was a doctor. So I thought I would just show you a few pictures and read a little bit about this and tell you an interesting fact. So what he did as a doctor, he drew sketches and he developed a method to see auras. What he did is he took two panes of glass, about 1/4 of an inch apart, like a window, double pane window, and he poured a dye into the 2 panes of glass that filtered out certain colors of light so that it changed the spectrum of what your eyes could see if you were a doctor looking at the patient through the 2 panes of glass. So I thought I'd read to you a couple of his medical descriptions and then go on from there. This is all a prelude to more information. Okay, here we go. He calls the women different letters of the alphabet. L, a strongly built lady with intellectual faculties, certainly above the average, was recently inspected. Page 25. She was robust and very energetic, and her aura, as might be reasonably expected, was large and fine in texture. The color was a good blue. The aura was 9 inches round the head, 12 by the sides of the trunk, and gradually contracted to 5 inches by the feet, making a perfect ovoid. I guess an ovoid would be like this. A side view gave 5 inches in front and 8 at the small of the back, without any dorsal curve. Delineation was usually distinct in the inner aura, which was 4 inches wide all over the body and limbs. The average interesting feature was that the definition of the distal margin of the outer aura had not the common sharpness and gave the impression of an almost imperceptible haze beyond the phenomenon rarely present upon when the aura is wide. It has been called the ultra outer aura. So all of us humans, everybody thinks the spirit or the soul is inside, or some people don't even think about it. But the actual soul, in my opinion, from my research, engulfs us like we're actually inside of a balloon. And there are people who, by one defect or another, or maybe it's not a defect, it's more of a perfection, they have a higher skill set of senses for some different DNA abnormally in the body. See, this is going to tie into Satanism and the occult. That's my purpose. But we need to acknowledge this is a reality. And we need to acknowledge also, what can this be good for us? Could it help in medicine? Has the human aura and the technology been suppressed? That's why I'm doing this series. I'm saying there's a lot of information that has been suppressed. Okay, the next instance is an example of a low-grade aura. The complete antithesis of the one just described. So this one lady he just described with the nice blue aura, this one here is not going to be as well. Let's see what he says about M. That was L. A diminutive, well-shaped woman, 28 years of age, had her aura inspected in 1913. This was 1913. This guy was from Russia, by the way. She had never suffered from any serious illness, but her mental powers were decidedly below the normal standard. He's drawn a picture of her. And you can see the rays. And, feel free to back up this video and pause it so you can see this if I don't hold it long enough. Because if I hold all these things for many, many minutes each one, we'll be here forever. But pause, you can look at it all day. She had never suffered from any serious illness, but her mental powers were decidedly below the normal standard. The color of her aura was a gray. So the healthy woman was a blue, and this slightly below normal intelligence and was a tinge of, with gray with hardly a tinge of blue, thus indicating an essentially low type. The shape and size, although its full growth had been attained, it corresponded with the traditional form normally found among girls in their teens. This lady was 28. As she faced the observer, round the head and by the sides of the trunk, the outer aura only acquired a width of 6 inches and contracted to 3 by the lower limbs. Viewed from the side, it measured 3 inches in front, and at the back it had a bulge which was broadest at the level of the waist, where it was 6 inches. The inner aura was about 2 inches all over the body and fairly straighted. So, healthy people have a more robust, from reading this book many years ago, but it's something I never forgot. And weaker people, ill people, have like a gray aura versus a blue aura. And people who are probably enraged have a red aura. And people who are very calm and happy and loving might have a pink aura. So there's a technology to this. And there's subjects in here, the outer aura and disease. So it's quite a thick book. 293 pages, and a little bit about Walter Kilner. It's a long way from the religious and occult tradition to the 20th century's doctor consulting room. But Dr. Walter John Kilner bridges this gap in his bold move to establish the reality of the human aura as a physical phenomenon. So you say to me, Rick, that's good. I'd like to have some of that dye. I'd like to make a mirror like that, or a window like that. And I'm going to tell you now, part of the problem here is, here's an article I found on the internet. And you can look it up for yourself. But blue cobalt aura glasses. Blue cobalt aura glasses is based on the invention of Walter Kilner. That's the book we just looked at, who was doing the research in 1913, who was a medical electrician at St. Thomas Hospital, London. He's from Russia, I believe, but he was working in London. He is also in private medical practice. He wrote papers on the range of subjects that is today best remembered in his late study, The Human Atmosphere. He is a member of the Royal College of Physicians. So we have a human aura. You can medically see whether somebody is healthy or ill by looking at it. So the technology is there. Well, here's the point of this article and this little tidbit of research. So this one gentleman here invented the glass slides, or the Kilner screens. That's the 2 panes of glass with the dye inside, containing alcohol solutions of various colored dyes, including a blue dye called dionycine, D-I-C-Y-A-N-I-N. Probably dionycine A. Here's the catch. Illegal in the United States, which were used as filters in the Kilner glasses, which together with lights were held to train the eyes to perceive electromagnetism outside the normal spectrum of visible light. So the technology is available. You don't know about it. They don't use it. And the chemical that you put in between the glass is illegal. Does that annoy you? So my point again is that there's things you should know about your own self, your physical body, the fact that you have an aura, and the fact that it does change frequencies and colors, and indicate your health or your mood and all the other things associated with your body. And the chemical that you can use to do this is illegal. Alright, so that's just a start there. I'm going to continue on this. As I said, the information that follows will be relative to this. Thank you. Alright, so moving on. Edgar Cayce had a little bit to say about auras. This was published in 1945. You would think a lot of people would know this stuff or want to know this stuff. Ever since I can remember, I have seen colors in connection with people. I do not remember a time when human beings I encountered did not register on my retina with blue and greens and reds gently pouring from their heads and their shoulders. It was a long time before I realized that other people did not see these colors. It was a long time before I heard the word aura and learned to apply it to this phenomenon, which to me was commonplace. I do not ever think of people except in connection with the auras. I see them change in my friends and loved ones as time goes by. Sickness, dejection, love, fulfillment, these are all reflected in the aura. And for me, the aura is a weather vane of the soul. It shows the way the winds of destiny are blowing. Many people are able to see auras. Many have had experiences similar to mine, not knowing for many years that it was something unique. One of my friends, a lady who is a member of the association, told me this. All during my childhood, I saw colors in connection with people, but did not realize that it was uncommon. One day, the appearance of a woman in our neighborhood struck me as odd. Though I could not for a moment see anything strange about her, when I got home, it suddenly struck me that she had no colors about her. Within a few weeks, this woman died. You see what I'm saying? This was my first experience with what I have learned to look upon as a natural action of nature. Apparently, the aura reflects the vibrations of the soul. When a person is marked for death, a soul begins to withdraw and the aura naturally fades. At the end, there is only a slim connection and the break is easy. I have heard that when people died suddenly in accidents, the passing was very difficult because the way it had not been prepared. Alright, so we learned a little bit about auras and colors. And they show whether you're healthy or sick. And they disappear when you're about to die, when you're leaving this plane of reality. And what's that got to do with Masonry and Satanism? Well, if we know what these videos I've been making, the Illuminati control the Masonry. And these are included in the Zionism, who are into the occultic and the Kabbalah. And Satanism, which is the devil, and evil forces. So in order to grab our head around that, to understand and even accept that, we need to know there's a higher technology, and that forces, the government have made efforts to make sure you don't know about it. They have been, and it's in some of this material I've been talking about, intentionally taking God and Jesus and other religions out of the school system, and they have been replacing it with a more of a chaos, a materialism, a sexual perversion reality for us. And it's a sort of a mind control. With that said, some of the new material I'm going to be sharing with you right away, you're going to have to fall back on this knowledge to get a grasp of what these evil forces or controlling forces in the New World Order are doing. If an aura is a reflection of your mood by a frequency, it's radiating from your body. Anger, love, healthy, illness, sick. Can somebody, say with satellites in space, radiate, after they measure those frequencies, radiate frequencies toward a city, towards you, towards me, and alter our mood, alter our health, kill us, mind control us to be assassins? Are they doing it? Well, I hate to tell you, we're going to find out they can, and they are. Masonry and Satanism. These people know a lot about a lot of things, and you don't know. And you need to know. Thank you. I don't even want to read you this. But we must know what we're talking about. I'm going to go back to Psychic Self-Defense with Dion. And again, you can go on used book sites on the internet and find these books for a few bucks. They're old. This one here, like I said before, was 1959, published by the Aquarian Press. They're in the United States. You can go on abooks.com, probably get it for $3 or $4. But this is a little information on vampirism. All right. This is going to be too much to believe, I suspect. Commander Gould, in his exceedingly interesting book, Oddities, gave an account of vampirism among the Berberlangs of the Philippine Islands. His account is based on a paper printed in the Journal of Asiatic Society, Volume LXV, 1896. These unpleasant people, according to Mr. Sterkley, the author of the article when Commander Gould quotes, are ghouls and must eat human flesh occasionally or they would die. Remember we looked at Stuart Swervel's book? And I told you about the Bases series on the internet you can look up with Miles Johnston, Johnston, and people who had been escaped from these secret government black ops facilities where the people were actually milk of their energies and eaten and killed. I'm not making it up. This is page 58. When they feel a craving for a meal of human flesh, they go away into the grass, and after carefully hidden their bodies, hold their breaths, and fall in a trance, their astral bodies are then liberated. So we just discussed auras. Now we're discussing astral bodies leaving people. Wow. What's with this Masonry, Illuminati, Zionism, occultic, satanic stuff going on. And these are the people trying to bring you the New World Order. These are the people who are putting the recent Miley Cyrus show on the MTV thing to the people. They're bringing this decadent, chaotic, anti-God reality to us. And most of us don't know it. It's in books. Like I said, 150 books. At least 100 I can verify, because it's over 10 years. I forgot many of them. But listen to this. Their astral bodies are liberated. They fly away, enter a house, make their way into the body of one of the occupants, and feed on his entrails. Feeds on his insides. Well, I don't think I need to keep on being gruesome. I'm going to move on to another topic in another book. In another book, in another book, until you get it. And if you don't go look up the books and verify what I'm saying, there's nothing I can do. I'm just giving you the clues, some of the material. And remember, these series are called Masonry and Satanism Book Review. So I'm only showing you stuff I read in books. Here's a book that's published. Mysterious Detectives, Psychics, by Tamara Wilcox. Page 30. The Chicago Sleuth, Irene Hughes. Irene Hughes, a psychic who lives in Illinois, has been working with the Chicago area police for over 10 years. Mrs. Hughes was born in a log cabin in Tennessee and comes from the Scottish Indian heritage. She claims that she had the gift of psychic power since her early childhood. This gift was inherited from her psychic Cherokee grandmother. Hughes, a well-known psychic, counselor, and astrologer in the Midwest. Hughes is a well-known psychic, counselor, and astrologer in the Midwest. I'm parting my reading. I mean, I'm getting better, and I'm never had to read aloud to people before. But I'm not trying to get you to believe what I have read or what I know and say, trust me. So I thought I would just read from some of these many books and let you get a gist for yourself and put together the whole picture like I think I've done. I think we're in trouble in the USA and the world. I think this New World Order is very, very evil. And they even have the Georgia Guidestones, which I've mentioned many times, in Georgia, USA. You can look it up. And it says they want to reduce the population to 500 million and maintain it. Who are they? Well, we know they run the world. We know they're the Illuminati. And there's Masonic symbolism on those stones, by the way. Look it up on the internet. Do your homework. Get a little notebook. Look this stuff up, I'm telling you. Punch holes in some documents. Put it in there. Put little labels. Show your friends. You too could be an investigator. I investigate the investigators. That's why I investigate the people who write these books. And so far, it's all melting into one big, horrible picture. She became nationally known when she predicted the fire that destroyed the Apollo spacecraft and killing 3 astronauts aboard. She predicted the disaster. 3 days before it happened, when she tried to stop the fatal ground tests of the spacecraft, her prediction was not taken seriously. Her success as a psychic detective is remarkable, even though Hughes can't explain her mental talents. It'd be interesting to see her aura when she's doing this. We saw in those 2 pictures, one lady had the spikes coming out of the aura. I'm reading reading these books and showing you these details. But I know a lot more details, but I don't want to tell you just to have you trust me. I'd rather read you the book and let you see it didn't come from me. And this is page 32 of this book, which you can, again, go on AbeBooks, and there's other used book sites on the internet for a couple bucks. This is a very thin book, And you too can have this arrive in the mail for $5, including shipping probably, and be reading this for yourself. So I don't have to go buy all these books I talk about, but you can buy a couple and verify that Rick's telling you, reading to you correctly. So I'll try to be more accurate when I'm reading and identify the page number. And I'm sure you can download these videos I'm making and save them on a disk for yourself. Irene Hughes is one of the few psychics who has had a lasting and effective relationship with the police authorities. In a recent interview, Hughes was asked about her work with the police. She replied, "I have worked on many cases. Once a police captain called me into the office and asked me to work on a murder case. The sergeant brought in a box and took out a human skull. He put it in my hands and said with a gruff voice, 'What do you get from that?' I answered, 'A heart attack.' Then I told him the name of the person who had been murdered, and it was the police captain's turn to almost have a heart attack. So she held the skull, and I guess some kind of mental image or words came into her head. Remember, Masonry and Satanism. Once we get a grasp that there's another world we don't know about, and we realize there's probably to that other dimension, because us humans, we have the aura, we have souls. You know, from my research, I started out 10 years ago as a psychic researcher. I was looking for alternate energy instead of oil and gas and nuclear power. A completely scientific research venture. Little did I know it would take me into this other realm. And then it took me into the politics and the Satanism and the Illuminati and the Zionism and the world wars and the banks taking over and the economic chaos and the murders of witnesses and whistleblowers. It takes me into the real world, the one that most of us are not aware of. The police did find a place by that name and found that it was where the murderer had contemplated the first of 5 murders. Assistant Chief of Police Virgil Jordan of Kankakee, Illinois Police Department believes in Irene Hughes. I'm thoroughly convinced that she had a deep perception, something that comes from her from the supernatural source. Bingo. This is what we're talking about. This is what aliens are. Greys, reptilians, abductions, all this craziness. These videos are going to get a little bit more insane. We're on number 16 right now. But I didn't want to start out with this stuff. I think I would have lost you in the beginning. But we had to see that there's some sinister stuff going on. Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11, all this stuff. Albert Pike, who was into the occult, who wrote the book Morals and Dogma, planning the 3 wars to take over the world. The Bible in Revelation, where it says Jews who call themselves Jews but are not. Well, who are they? And if they're studying the occult and the Kabbalah, then they certainly know about all this stuff. All right, I believe you got the point. So you can get this book. Like I said, $5. It can show up in your mail. I'm not selling anything. You can go on used book sites or someplace, and you'll find them, or your library, and or internet YouTube videos on these subjects. You need to open up your mind and find out this is real. All right, let's see what the next subject's going to be. Stand by. All right, now let's get back to the practical, or maybe not. The Oklahoma City bombing and the politics of terror. Boom, Satanism again, terror. This is what we're talking about. This is the reality, 911, this stuff here. Look at the tabs. You can see I've read this book halfway through. After halfway through, I didn't need to finish. I mean, I need to finish it, but as you can see, it's a fairly thick book. 508 pages. But I read up to about 142. So let's just talk about a little bit about Tim McVeigh, the guy they pinned the Oklahoma City bombing and politics of terror on. This is page 53. It is also interesting to note that Calspan and Advanced Technology Center, Calspan, C-A-L-S-P-A-N, in Buffalo, where McVeigh worked, is engaged in microscopic electronic engineering applicable to telemetrics. Whoa, we're into this high-tech science stuff. Calspan was founded in 1946 as Cornell Aeronautics Laboratory, which included the Fund for the Study of Human Ecology, a CIA conduit of mind control experiments by émigré Nazi scientists. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm getting goosebumps. McVeigh was into something much bigger than blowing up a building as a disgruntled citizen against the federal government. I read all 142 pages. I read all the witnesses, all the people who knew him. The fact that Tim McVeigh was microchipped. The fact that he wanted to be in the Green Beret. It's all in this book. The fact that apparently he was a CIA secret agent. And he was supposed to be infiltrating all of these private militias out west, in Kansas, Utah, Tennessee, Illinois. They don't tell you this, do they? Get the book at some used book site, couple bucks. Read it and say, oh my God, Rick, this is just too much to believe. According to mind control researcher Alex Constantine, Calspan places much research and emphasis on bioengineering and artificial intelligences. Remember the aura? Psychic detectives we just looked at? In his article, The Good Soldier, Constantine states, human tracking and monitoring technologies are well within Calspan's sphere of pursuits. The company is instrumental in REDCap, an Air Force electronics warfare system that winds through every Department of Defense facility in the country. A Pentagon release explains that REDCap is used to evaluate the effectiveness of electronic combat hardware, techniques, tactics, and concepts. McVeigh worked here as a security guard. They put him around the country. In this book, had plenty of sugar jobs like this, because he was when he was in the military, he had awards, a great soldier, wanted to dream to be in a Green Beret, loved his family. So apparently this whole thing with the Oklahoma City bombing, according to my interpretation of what I'm reading here, he was an insider, and he was supposed to be following along, trying to catch these people. They were setting these people up. This was a false flag, just like 911. The systems include closed-loop radar and data links at RF manned data fusion and weapons control posts. One Patriot computer news board reported that the disembodied, rumbling, low-frequency hum that had been heard across the country the week of the bombing passed hums in Taos, New Mexico, Eugene and Medford, Oregon, Timmins, Ontario, and Bristol, UK, were most definitely, despite spurious official denials, attuned to the brain's auditory pathways. Mind control is going on. All right, I don't have to go through this book with a fine-tooth comb. That's not the purpose of my videos. I'm introducing to the book. I read that much of the book. I just read you a couple paragraphs. That enough alone. Forget about Tim McVeigh and Oklahoma City bombing. Look what these people are up to. There's something called HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, H-A-A, 2 A's, R-P. And it's an antenna array in Alaska. There's about 6 or 7 of them throughout the United States. And they beam up RF energies like FM radio station or a microwave oven, which is a higher frequency. And they heat up the ionosphere, and they lift up the ionosphere like a big balloon, and they move massive amounts of air. Look it up. There's plenty of websites with this stuff. And the Illuminati and the Masonic lodges, which is a filter to find the people who hold jobs in government, and they weed out the bad guys, the evil guys, the controllable guys, the money-hungry guys, the sexual perverted guys. These are the people they're putting in positions. The decent, honest guys don't get in there. And if anybody knows too much, they get neutralized. That means killed. Alright, so let me move on to the next subject on this little video, number 16, Masonry and Satanism. Thank you. Alright, craziness continues. The Montauk Project. Experiments in Time. Preston Nichols with Peter Moon. Peter Moon, Tim Ryfat, David Morehouse, that other book I showed you with remote viewing. These people were into going into trances, leaving their bodies, and spying on other people. They worked for the government, the Black Ops programs, the Illuminati, the Masonic lodges, the Zionism, like Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, we control the USA. The Satanist religious ceremonies going on in the Bohemian Grove, where the presidents have been photographed and they throw a baby into the burning fire. Moloch, the devil, Lucifer, Satan, the owl on the dollar bill, the all-seeing eye. So who are they catering to? What were they promised? I'll just read you a little tidbit or two from this book, The Montauk Project. Again, use book sites on the internet. Have one delivered to you for $5-10. You read this stuff, it'll blow you away. Through Duncan, the equipment in the Montauk transmitter, scientists could actually load information, programs, and commands into an individual's mind. Duncan's thoughts would become an individual's own thoughts. This is going to play an important role in what we're going to talk about in the very near future. They can, just like a hypnotist, can do to a whole crowd of people. Anybody with the essence of their power, their energy, flowing out of them, can sort of hypnotize people almost instantly. Groups of people. Imagine what they do with the technologies, those transmitter towers, and HARP in Alaska beaming off the ionosphere. And every couple hundred miles, they're installing these new towers. Not your cell phone towers, but this special web. Why? Don't you want to know? This is October 6th, Wednesday. No, November 6th, Wednesday, 2013. I'm in Orlando. And the holidays are coming, and there's a lot of craziness in the news. That's all related to this conspiracy stuff. And it's not a conspiracy. Go buy the book. All these authors aren't lying. 100 years of some of these books we were reading here in 1913, the Kilner and the Orem equipment. Why is dionycine, the dye you put between the glass, illegal? Don't you want to know? Duncan's thoughts would become an individual's own thoughts. In using this process, an individual could be made to do something he wouldn't ordinarily do. This was the start of the mind control aspect of the Montauk Project. Please go online, look it up. There are other books. There's a lot of whistleblowers out there. They're not getting the attention because just the people, they dismiss it. They say, it's impossible. You're crazy. Go back on your medications. That's why I'm reading. This is page 81. This line of research continued until about 1979. See how far back this stuff goes? Many other different experiments ensued. Some of them were interesting, but others had horrible consequences. They would target individuals or masses of people. I'm telling you, It's hard to get excited. Jeez, this is too much. Animals, places, and technology. They could basically target anything they wanted. For example, a TV set could be made to go haywire. They could stop the picture and shut it off entirely. They could telekinetically move objects and destroy rooms. In one particular case, Duncan concentrated on shattering a window. Enough force was generated to the point where it actually broke a window in a nearby town of Montauk. By the way, after reading this book, there was a lot of craziness and weird stuff, and young children, boys mostly, abducted in the Long Island area. And in this book, it details all the horrific things they did to these kids. The traumatic thing, that's what they do when they torture people. They traumatize somebody so that the trauma is so devastating, so horrible, you block out the memory. And that's where they can hypnotize you and refill that empty space with a mind control program. And that's called an assassin, a hidden assassin. Somebody they can trigger. They give them a code word or a symbol. It could be a striped suit or something that triggers that command that people are programmed to follow. Humans could be influenced to start a crime wave. One must realize that when Duncan did these experiments, he was in an altered form of consciousness. He was one of the young boys who was abducted. He had been given special training which could possibly have been administered by the CIA and NSA. In any event, his conscious mind would be diverted through sexual bliss. I continued to keep telling you, this whole thing on TV, Miley Cyrus, the show, the last Super Bowls, the satanic rituals with Madonna and Lady Gaga, the homosexual stuff in the press releases day after day after day. This is a Luciferian satanic program. Biblical. They want Jesus and God out of the picture. In any event, his conscious mind would be diverted through sexual bliss. What could be termed the primitive mind, this is your reptilian brain, you know, when we were created or developed, would then surface. And this is what they're doing with all these crazy drugs and fluoride in the water and medications. And the alcohol these days is not real quality alcohol. It's tainted with chemicals. What was that one? Some horrible chemicals. Formaldehyde, I think that's one they use. The stuff is in the cheap liquor and beers and stuff. It's meant to calcify your pineal gland, the thing right here, so that you can't have psychic experiences, so you can't communicate with your normal higher self, God, which we're all connected to. They're putting a big shield up around Earth. Did you know that? That's what this part of this technology is. Because apparently, according to going off in other directions, and stuff I read in books, I don't want to believe you, I'll make sure I read that portion of some book. But apparently, in horoscopes, as you move in different relations to like a full moon, for example, the crimes increase. Everybody knows that. Well, when the Earth and the Sun moves through the different signs, you know, like Jesus showed up at the beginning of the age of Pisces, and now we're going into the age of Aquarius. So it's a big cycle of 26,000 years, according to my research. And we just went through what was called the dark 5,000 years, where for whatever reason, humanity and the souls inside people were further away from the source, where our souls came from. So we were not connected, we were mostly disconnected. Now, as the age of Aquarius is returning, called the return of the Golden Age, we're coming into closer proximity to source, ever increasing. Even the next age will be even closer. And apparently reality and society will be much more advanced. But the nefarious, evil forces controlling the planet right now, and these other books, are trying to prevent that. if you want the skinny on this whole thing. And that's why the fluoride in the water calcifies your pineal gland, which is basically a little tiny pine cone shape. If you look up the Vatican and you look in pictures, you'll see gigantic pine cones the size of cars, statues. The Vatican and all the other occultic people know this stuff. So if the pineal gland is in perfect health, which is usually full of water and little tiny crystals, we know crystals are used in radios and magic crystals and all that. If you had a healthy pineal gland, which was full of water and little crystals, you could actually, probably telepathy amongst everybody would increase. All kinds of abilities would increase. But they have nefarious purposes. And I don't want you to believe this. I'm reading to you this stuff. I'm going to read you some more. But that's just another tidbit of info. I want you to see if you get enough of this. I read you one page, 2/3 of one page of this book. I can't read you the whole book. We'd never get this 25 videos done. I'm doing book reviews out of the 100+ books I've read and just giving you a brain dump of what the accumulated information. The Oklahoma City Mummy. That's where the FBI had all their records too, in that building, on many nefarious cases the FBI had against, I guess, some of these high-level rich dudes, people that belonged to the Illuminati and the high-level people in government. So they were killing two birds, probably 3 or 4 birds with one stone. And then again, there was a child care daycare center in this facility, which most of the bombings we noticed that a lot of people die, and usually it's children, and these are part of the satanical sacrifices. And after the building was bombed, blown up, there were apparently all kinds of other devices strapped to the columns inside. And everybody was told to stay away while secret SWAT teams came in and removed all those nuclear or semi-nuclear devices. Again, it's in the book. I read it. Get the book, read it. Get this book, read it. And let me go on to something else. I'll try to be quick about it. All right, so we're talking about the auras, mind control. So I decided in aliens, UFOs, greys, reptilians, Satanism, magic. So I thought I would look up and just see what was in the Bible on demon possession. Because remember, these evil people, the ones in the Bohemian Grove in California, are throwing the baby in the fire to this big demon god Moloch, the owl. So when I did a little search on the internet, it said 13 startling demon-possessed incidents in the Bible. You can look it up. I'm going to read you a little of this. And you'll get a better gist of why these people are abducting children and messing with putting chemicals in our bodies and messing with the alcohol and putting the fluoride, getting everybody on drugs. Why the Rockefellers did away with holistic medicine and got allopathic and made all the people who were giving out herbs for cures and all kinds of other old-time ointments and mixtures and the way they used to do medicine for thousands of years. But the Rockefellers had all that banned, and the doctors were accused of quackery. And allopathic, which was surgery, was replaced with homeopathy. Anyways, as we all know now, interestingly enough, so all that science went away with all those people who knew all those recipes for all those cures for like gout or like heart disease or eye cures, or, in other words, homeopathy. So anyways, the Rockefeller in their vast empire took over the medical colleges and got involved with the government and outlawed homeopathy and forced allopathy on us all. Now with the great gigantic pharmaceutical companies, and they have all these recipes that the old doctors were accused of quackery. Now pharmacy is the biggest corporate income stream, billions, trillions of dollars and the Rockefeller and the rest of the Illuminati families control this. What a nefarious, scheming group of people. And you want to trust the Obama healthcare plan? Methinks you shouldn't. Alright, so 13 startling demon-possessed incidents in the Bible. Mark 1:24. What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazarene? Have you come to destroy us? I know you are the Holy One of God. Luke 4:35. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, and come out of him. And when the devil had thrown him in the midst, he came out of him and hurt him not. Matthew 8-28-32. And when he had come out, he had come to the other side, to the country of the Gorgigeneses. You can look it up for yourself, 8-28. There he met him 2 demon-possessed men, coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce. I have to stop and make a comment. I don't think it's an accident from Miami to Maine. And I've been to these places. I tried to run and hide. I admit it. I wanted to get away from society. I was divorcing myself from the world many years ago when I started discovering this. And I was, I could visually see it. I mean, the tattoos, the young people, even the middle-aged people, the way they were behaving. And I was a business owner, and I had business dealings, and the people I had to interface with, the horrible nature of humanity was just growing. But anyways, if you go from California to North Carolina and you see all these young people, and they're all tattooed head to toe and watching mindless, decadent, stupid TV programs, and doing drugs, and their appearance, everything else, they don't want to work. A lot of people, there are a lot of, and the government's supporting this. What, 50 million people on food stamps, welfare? So the government's completely aware of what they are doing, and they are appeasing this massive population. But let me get to my story. I can see by the demonic tattoos on people and all the other actions that they're under some kind of mind control, some kind of mass mind control. That's the way it appears to me. And the evidence I'm showing you here supports it. And it's in the Bible here. We got a little ways to go here. These men were extremely fierce so that no one could pass that way. And suddenly they cried out, saying, What have we to do with you, Jesus, the Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? What time, I want to ask. I guess it's something to do with the New World Order and all this Luciferian activities. And like I said, I like 2.5 Men on TV. I watch it. But as I learn more and more and more, I'm beginning to think I can't watch it. I mean, I was watching what they were talking to the boy, Jake, on the show yesterday. And it was pretty gross. So they are mind controlling us. And we don't even know it, many people. Now, a good way off from them, there was a herd of many swine feeding. Remember, the 2 guys were fierce and they were possessed? So the demons begged him, saying, If you cast us out, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said unto them, Go. So Jesus had the power to cast the demons out of these 2 guys and put them in the herd of swine. So when they had come out, they went into the herd of swine, and suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the water. There's a picture of it here. I'm not trying to teach you any religion. I'm not advocating. I'll tell you that I think that we need to be believing in God. Pick your religion. God is God and Lucifer is Lucifer. And I think if you read any of the religions, I think I took a course in college, Comparable Religions, and the lady from Iran was the teacher at the college I went to. and she had the 12 different religion, 10 commandments, 11 commandments, 12 commandments, laid side by side. And they were all the same. Don't kill, don't steal, don't murder. One God. But the pagan religion that Moses brought the Hebrews out of, which I suppose I should tell you that story now while I'm here. There's a big deception in the world going on. I think I'll save that for you. It has to do with the 12 or 13 tribes. And everybody believing that Israel, the country that exists now, is the chosen ones. I don't think it's true. I think they're the evil ones and the rest of the world are the chosen ones. And I have information to back that up. Remember, Satan is the great deceiver. And Zionism is in control of Israel right now. The tribe of Judah. What about the other 12 tribes? Who are they? You know who they are? They're you and me. In Edgar Casey's book, I'll read that paragraph. But when God created man, he created 5 root races. You can look this up. 5 root races. Go on the internet. Go ahead. Black, white, red, yellow, brown. 5 root races. Anyways, so when the people were escaped from Egypt, from the Pharaoh, who was into the pagan religion, the sun god, Ra, Osiris, Isis, all these gods, demon technologies, turning stabs, wooden stabs into snakes. That's what the Pharaoh did. And then Moses threw his staff down and his snake ate the other 2 snakes. So there's something going on with this physical quantum physics of reality that they don't want you to know. That's why they made Dionysian illegal, so you can't see auras and people can't get natural health remedies until the Rockefellers owned all the pharmaceutical companies. Alright, let me take a break. And I do realize that this series of book reviews is just a little bit out there. But I only read the books. And I've spent 10 years and read 100 books, more, hundreds of magazines, thousands of press releases, paying attention to all the stuff the government's been doing, all the deception, 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing. You just heard a little bit about some of the shenanigans with Tim McVeigh working for these mind control tech companies and him wanting to be a Green Beret, and the fact that he couldn't sit on his butt because he was microchipped and it was painful. People don't tell you all this stuff. But Edgar Casey, I thought I'd slip over to this before I discuss anything else. He did 17, 18, 20,000 readings. I don't know, I think it's like 16, almost 17,000. They tried to debunk this guy. A lot of the readings, when he went into a trance laying on the couch, came in the mail. And it had the name. The person didn't show up on many of these readings. But it had the name and the address of the person. And there were some debunkers who were trying to debunk Edgar Casey and sent some fake names. So when Edgar Casey in a trance was given the fake name, the fake person, the fake address, in the trance he would say, I can't find this person. Isn't that startling? So many times they tried to debunk him. Of course they did. From the 30s and 40s and 50s when this guy was doing this, or 46 he died, I don't know, 20s. And they couldn't. Then there's an institute in Virginia, the Casey Museum Research Society, and people on different subjects, in this case Jesus, compiled readings related to that. and wrote books. There's books on Atlantis, books on Rome, books on religion, Jesus, God. So I thought I'd go back to this a little bit and see if it kind of matches what we've been talking about on this particular video. Page 53. Again, go on a used book site. You know, I can only get you started. I can't read all these books. But I can tell you this. On page 53 it says this. I see myself as a tiny dot out of my physical body, which lies inert before me. I find myself oppressed by the darkness, and there is a feeling of terrific loneliness. Suddenly I am conscious of a white beam of light. As this tiny dot, I move upward following the light, knowing that I must follow it or be lost. From my research, and so when you die, or I die, this is what most people do when they leave their bodies, when they decease, and they do go to the light. And hopefully most of us get the light instead of the Grim Reaper and going the other way if there's another way. Again, I'm not doing these videos to give you religion. I'm letting you know that I believe that the Illuminati is firmly in control of this world. And as Alex Jones showed you in the Bohemian Grove in California, these politicians and presidents and CEOs of media companies, TV stations and airlines all get there naked in robes, and they ship in homosexuals. Remember, sex is a big part of the rituals. And they throw a baby on the fire, and they're screaming and hollowing, and it's called the cremation of care. Don't believe me? Look it up. Go to Alex Jones' website. I don't have nothing to do with him. I listen to him. I look at some of his material, and the guy can't be bad. He's telling you a lot of truth and a lot of whistleblowing stuff. He even says he could be killed. I don't know what kind of nefarious evil thing is going on and who can be in on what. But I'm sharing books, reading you a page or two, and you decide after that. I will tell you a story, though. It's interesting. I think it was back in '86, Christmas Day Eve. Not Christmas Eve, but Christmas Day, Christmas. And that evening, I had done charity all day, helping other people. I had just gotten divorced 3 or 4 months earlier, and I was kind of lonely, so I diverted my attention by doing charity thing all day long, serving to others instead of worrying about my own stuff. I had a nice apartment in Orlando on a lake, you know, but I was lonely, and I was maybe slightly depressed. 86, I think it was. Anyway, so after the end of the day, with the lights on in my condo, 2nd floor in Orlando, nice place on a lake, I laid on the couch. This happened to me. And the next thing I know, the TV's on, there's a clock on the wall. The next thing I know is I'm up here looking at me laying there. And being a student, a reader, and I was an engineering technician at a major aerospace company at that time, from 79 to 89, I said to myself, whoa, I'm out of my body. And of course the question in my head was, what do I do now that I'm out of my body? And I told myself, well, if I remember what I have read, is that I'd read all the Robert Heinlein books. They were pretty sci-fi back then. Robert Heinlein. Anyway, so I thought, well, I'll just think myself. I'll go to where I was doing charity work all day, see what they are doing, and then I can call them tomorrow and tell them this exciting thing that happened to me. And while I was above my body, I looked into the kitchen, because I looked around, and I'm a kind of a, as you can see my apartment behind me, I'm kind of a neat freak. You know, I'm not a messy person. And I noticed the top of my white refrigerator was black. And the refrigerator in this apartment sat right next to the stove. But I'm a 5'8", so I'm not tall enough to see the top of a refrigerator. Because if I did see it black and it was dirty, I would have cleaned it. What you don't see, I guess you don't worry about. But I just dismissed it. I go, oh my God, look at that, a white refrigerator with a black top. So anyways, I thought to myself, go to where I was supposed to go. And I left the lighted room, and I could tell I was moving fast in darkness. And I panicked. And I said, well, maybe I died. I don't want to die. It was Christmas Day Eve. And I told myself, no, I want to go back to my body. Next thing I know, I'm laying there on the sofa, looking up. It was all startling. So I sat up, and I pondered it, and I said, did that really happen? I thought it through. And then I remembered the refrigerator. And I went and got a chair, and stood on the chair, and the top of that refrigerator was black because it was next to the stove and the grease. You could write your name on the black dirt grease. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of this. I move upward following the light, knowing that I must follow it or be lost. This is where it gets really interesting. As I move along this path of light, I gradually become conscious at various levels upon which there is movement. So he sees the light and he's moving towards the light, and I gradually become conscious of various levels upon which there is movement. Upon the first level, there is a vague, horrible shapes, grotesque forms, such as one sees in nightmares. I don't think I've ever seen a grotesque form in a nightmare. I do have dreams, and some of them can be scary. But I don't think I've ever seen grotesque forms. Different people do different things. I tell you what I have done recently, though, is when I wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which seems to be every night I wake up in the middle of the night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, and I'm dreaming. And for the last 6 weeks, I've been going to my laptop, turning it on, and typing out the dream. Maybe 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs. Because they disappear from your brain really quick. Just trying to see after I look at this after a couple of months if I can see any kind of pattern. I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher. Anyways, upon the first levels, there are vague, horrible shapes, grotesque forms, such as one sees in nightmares. As I pass on, there begin to appear on either side mishapen forms of human beings, with some part of the body magnified. Again, there is a change. I become conscious of these gray hooded forms, moving downward. Gradually, these become lighter in color. Then the direction changes. These forms move upward, and the color of the robes glows rapidly lighter. Next, there begins to appear on each side vague outlines of houses, walls, trees, etc. But everything is motionless. As I pass on, there is more light and movement. Remember, the guy's out of his body. In what appears to be normal cities and towns, with the growth of movement, I become conscious of sounds, at first indistinct rumblings, then music, laughter, and the singing of birds. So the closer he gets to the light, the more harmonious and wonderful it seems to be getting. The further he was when he first started out, there were vague, horrible, and grotesque forms. There is more and more light, the colors become very beautiful, and there is a blending of sound and color. Quite suddenly, I come upon the Hall of Records. Remember, he goes and does readings for people. It is a hall without walls, without a ceiling, but I am conscious of seeing an old man who hands me a large book, a record of the individual for whom I seek information. Edgar Casey. 1,700 plus or minus readings, never been debunked in 30, 40 years of doing that. All kinds of curing of people. They tried to debunk him, and he has a museum or a research center up in Virginia Beach. So the guy, if anybody's going to believe anybody, it seems Edgar Casey is telling you the truth. So he calls it the Akashic Records, A-K-A-S-H-I-C. So that's that little portion I wanted to tell you. There was another thing in here that I wanted to tell you. The record of this experience, when he does a reading, becomes that part of an individual known as the Akasha record, Akasha or soul record. So everybody's activities that we all do gets recorded. Makes you wonder why the government's doing all this stuff with crazy TV programming, fluoridating and calcifying the pineal gland, drugs and kind of chemicals and formaldehyde and alcohol, and pharmaceuticals forced on little children because they ask questions and they're excited. In these Akashic records that the subconscious mind of Edgar Casey were able to scan and comment upon through the life readings. There's a portion here I wanted you to know. Okay, here we go. It is the destiny of every spiritual entity, this is page 48, to become eventually one with God. Unless the entity wills its banishment. Mind control again. All this stuff on TV. So if they can convince the entity to will its own banishment, it doesn't wind up in the world where God has prepared for us. I'm not being religious. I'm reading from Edgar Casey, the guy who did Readings book. As with man is given him the soul, there was given the will wherewith there might be manifested in the entity either the spiritual or the material. Well, communism is the material, and the Constitution of the United States, under the guise of the Ten Commandments, was the spiritual way. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. With the will of the entity, either spiritual or physical, may banish itself. Again, it is in compliance with law. As given, hell was prepared for Satan and his angels. Again, I'm not advocating a big fiery pit. I'm just saying what this Edgar Casey, who does readings, page 48, hell was prepared for Satan and his angels. This series is Masonry and Satanism. Here we go is a question on page 47. What is meant here by the war in heaven between Michael and the devil? Let's see here. As has been just given, as it is understood by those here, this is Edgar Casey answering a question in a trance. There is first, as in the spiritual concept, the spiritual rebellion, before it takes mental form. This warring is illustrated, like they're having a war, is illustrated by the war between the Lord of the Way, Archangel Michael, and the Lord of Darkness, Satan, the Lord of Rebellion. So they want everybody to not abide by the Ten Commandments, which we already know. And that's why they're doing all this decadent stuff. That was that part I wanted to tell you. Apparently, please give the important incarnations of Jesus in the world's history. Now, I'm not trying to agree or disagree with the Bible. I happen to agree with the Bible, and this is not the Bible. And I'm not being a preacher. I'm reading from page 39. Thank you very much. Please give the important incarnations of Jesus in world's history. In the beginning was Amulus as Adam. So apparently, according to this, Jesus was incarnated many times, as Melchizedek, as Zend, as as Asaph, as Joshua, Joseph, and then Jesus. That as the coming into the world in the second coming. For he will come again and receive his own who have prepared themselves through that belief in him and acting in the manner. For the Spirit is abroad, and the time draws near, and there will be a reckoning of those, even as in the first, so in the last. And the last shall be first. For there is that Spirit abroad. He standeth near. Ye that hath eyes to see, let him see. He that have ears to hear, let him hear. And music of the coming of the Lord of this vineyard. And all thou ready to give account on thou hast done, with thine opportunity in the earth as the sons of God. So, God put us here. And I'm not a saint. Gosh. 6 o'clock, it's getting ready for a beer. And 2.5 Men I watch. Maybe I shouldn't be watching it. When I watch Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica or sci-fi, I was watching Stargate last night, the movie. Because I'm a researcher and I'm now seeing all these movies and shows in a different light. And I'm noticing on 2.5 Men the stuff that I didn't notice before that just shocks me now that I pay attention. Adam's entry into the world in the beginning then must become the savior of the world. So apparently Adam, when they fell, because Satan the snake gave him the knowledge and the stuff that he's been coming back and he's supposed to be involved with the world. The readings make numerous references of the sons of man as being entrapped in the strange, grotesque bodies, curiously reminiscent of the ancient legends of centaurs and stars, I guess, men with wings and feathers and hooves and claws and half-fish and pear tree, of demonic spirits, encased as dragons and reptiles and other weird, hideous beasts. Jeez. This is too much. Well, I think I've done enough. If you're still watching, you're brave. Cloven hoofs with 4 legs, appendages with portions of trees and tails and scales and various other things that are thought forms. So engulfed. So just imagine that the people now, the scientists, have all these laboratories like in that book, The Montauk. Look it up by yourself. Time for a break. Thank you. Alright, let's end this program with the last part of those 13 startling demon-possessed incidences in the Bible that you can look up. As they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with the devil. And when the demon was cast out, the dumb spake. So they cast out the demon, and the dumb man spoke. The multitudes marveled. The crowd was pleased, saying, it was never so seen in Israel. That was Matthew 9-32. Mark 7:29. Then he said to her, because you have said this, go. The demon has left your daughter. Matthew 17-18. O unbelieving and perverse generation, Jesus replied, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me. Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed from that moment. Jesus was driving out a demon that was mute. Driving out a demon that was mute. When the demon left, the man who had been mute spoke, and the crowd was amazed. So that's the first 6. I got a treat for you. The Rick Miracle slideshow photos. This is the Bohemian Grove. That's Mr. Colin Powell. I guess we know what the Bohemians are into. This is the Bohemian crest. Notice the fleur-de-lis. Need my hand free right here. That's that little lily from the Egyptian area. And the lion. Anyways, the fleur-de-lis is also the Boy Scouts logo. Huh. Alright, some unsavory characters with their owl. There's a little tiny owl on the dollar bill. The Bohemian Grove that I keep talking about, where they have the cremation of care. There's the big owl and the fire. There's another clearer picture where they throw the baby in the fire, all our politicians. This is an ancient picture, you know, a long time ago. It looks like 67 years ago, a big meeting at the Bohemian Grove. That's apparently where a lot of the politicians met and scientists and planned on making the atomic bomb. Some memorabilia about the Bohemian Grove over the years. They don't allow women. They, according to Alex Jones or other people, they the men are, all the politicians are in long gowns, naked, and they bring in gay homosexuals, I guess. The owl. This is what? 1966. Reagan, Nixon at the Bohemian Grove. And I just spent $15 on these 110 pictures. A little kind of satanic ritual at the Bohemian Grove, the guy lying there, and probably some kind of witches, warlock thing. Anyways, you can go on the internet and just put in Bohemian Grove images or pictures or photos, and you'll get this Yahoo site. And you can print these out and go do what I did. I did 110 pictures. I'm not going to do the whole 110 right now. All these Masons, presidents were Masons. Remember, this is Masonry and Satanism. The future, the New World Order, Freemasonry. In every city, this is Chicago, there's these big buildings that are the Masonic lodges. You know, Satan is often described as the goat. During 9/11, George Bush was in Miami reading a little book about goats to the kids. You think that was intentional? It's the symbol for Satan. You all seeing eye, Capitol building. The symbolism is there. Just go and put Masonic. President Truman was a Mason. All these people that got us into the wars. The Hindu religion, they worship the cow. That's the sun disk on the cow, which is the disk you see in Egyptian on the pyramids. So the Masonic people are involved in the Egyptian religion. There's the sun disk on this Isis, I believe. So, anyways, I just thought I'd give you my last little photo shoot. The Knights Templar, Masons. Again, on the internet you can look this stuff up. The photo thing is quite fascinating. You look for the symbolism. So that's enough for this number 16 video. I hope I haven't freaked you out. I'm just trying to let you know that what's going on in the world is intentional. The New World Order, the Illuminati, the scheme to create the Federal Reserve in 1913, which took over basically the USA, the nation, because they control the money, they control the politicians, they control the country, they charge interest. World War I, World War II, probably financed. The USA people had to pay it back. And like Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, don't worry about the USA, we control the USA. And those people are Zionists, which are controlled by the Illuminati. Or do the Zionists control the Illuminati, or do the Illuminati control the Zionists? They're all Satanists, they worship Lucifer, and they control the Masonic lodges. And Albert Pike sent out a letter back in 1870 or something, during the war between the states in the United States of America, and said only Masons at level 30 up are to be told all these Luciferian details. Everybody else is to believe we're nice and Christians. And in India, the Masonic lodges are Hindus. And in, I'm sure in the Muslim countries, all the Masonic lodges are Muslims. But when they reach up to the 30-something level, they get to be told the real purpose. So number 17 is next, and I'm going to try to focus more on the secret op programs, the abductions of young boys, mind control, microchipping, the scientific aspect, HARP, sky spraying. I want to get into what these Satanists, occultists, Illuminati, Freemasons, Masonic lodges, globalists, world banksters, the whole thing contrives is the Illuminati. Let's find out what they're doing with their high-tech world that they've been spending all our money on and keeping from us. They're using our money to build all these weapons, these tanks, these bullets, these microwave transmit mind control systems, the drugs, the fluoride in the water. We people paid for this. And now we're in debt 17 trillion, they say, which could be 35 or 40 trillion in the news this week, last week. And we fought their wars overseas since 9/11, and then we borrowed money from them to fight these wars, and now we owe them plus interest. What part of that is just ludicrous? Crazy. Anyways, Rick Merico reporting, and thank you for listening. And I realize it seems a little out there, but that's the world we live in. God bless. Wake up.